Hey everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to TandeWrites, where today we're going to be wrapping up my reading in March and maybe some quarterly stats at the end. I spent January and February being very overwhelmed at the end of the month because I'd read notably more books than usual, and then I had this self-inflicted pressure that, oh my god, I have to keep up this pace, I have to be the best at reading. And thankfully this month we've only read 9 books instead of 13. And I feel like, not that I've let myself down, but that I can finally ease into having a calm, peaceful reading life. And like last month, my reading this month is very much a return to form. I'm reading my very usual genres of dark, mysterious, tense, and light-hearted inspirings on there. I've not seen that yellow in a while. Romance is 3rd on my genre list this month, and I'm struggling to remember at this exact moment in time what I read that is a romance, I guess, above everything else. But as usual, young adult is my predominant genre. It's not a genre, it's an age category. LGBT, again, not a genre, in my opinion, but it's up there. Then a little bit of horror, dystopian, sci-fi. You can tell that the Hunger Games book came out this month. And then this is one of the more balanced formats. I don't usually include my formats, because it's usually largely ebook, which is usually library ebooks, sometimes audio, and then a very small amount of physical or print. But this month, still almost half digital, but print, a 3rd in print. That is 3 books that I've physically read, none of which were on my TBR that I set myself for the year, but I read books off these shelves. Then audiobook is 22% because that is the 2 audiobook rereads, because I only tend to listen to audiobooks if it's reread, because I just can't process new information via audio form. And this is a pretty good average rating for me. It's 3.81 stars. That means largely 4 stars. There's one book unrated because I just was not sure how to rate it. But I largely enjoyed my reads this month. There's no standout life-changing new favourite book reads, but I really enjoyed most of them. And here is specifically the StoryGraph cover collage of books I read this month. And it looks how my books usually look. Let's talk about some individual reads. Oh, I started this month by trying to read Authority by Jeff Vandermeer, which is the sequel to the Annihilation book, because I really loved Annihilation, so I thought, yeah, I really love the second one. And I started reading this book at the end of last month, because I mentioned it in that monthly wrap-up video, where I said that Authority is so far triple the length and half the fun of Annihilation. And I stuck to that point because I hit DNF on it, and I usually will power through and struggle through mostly books rather than DNFing them, but this one I gave up. I was like, there's nothing about it I'm going to enjoy, and it's also going to taint my enjoyment of the series. Or the first book, really. What have I actually finished reading? Because there's some books on here that I started reading, and then I put them on pause to read other books, and I haven't got back to them, so it's just a very confusing map here. Okay, next 2 physical reads. The first physical book I read this month was What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher, which is the kind of sequel to What Moves the Dead. Is it down here? It is down here. It is a very teeny tiny little book, and What Moves the Dead was kind of a war-ish reimagining of the fall of the House of Usher, where the house is infected with mushrooms and everyone goes crazy. This one, the house is not infested with mushrooms, it is infested with a spirit? A breath-stealing creature. And I'm very fond of my gender-ambiguous Alex Easton travelling different places and just getting haunted in every house they live in. Really enjoyed this one. I think I picked it up because it was teeny tiny, and I thought, yeah, I can read that very quickly and make myself feel good about forcing myself to try and keep up to my reading goals. Where are you, little frog book? Okay, the second physical book I finished reading this month is the Little Frog's Guide to Self-Care. It's this little book. Each page has a picture of a frog with a different motivational quote on. It's really cute. I didn't rate it because I don't know how you rate a book like that. But it's fun, it's cute. I would get this little frog in high-heeled boots tattooed somewhere on my body. But I cannot find it for the life of me. Is it just too little? It's not directly behind me. I don't know where it's gone, but it's really cute and I did enjoy it. And then, similar to Another Million People in the World this week, this was my 3rd physical read of the month, The Hunger Games. What is it? It's kind of a sequel to the prequel, but it's a prequel to the sequel. Yeah. This is obviously about Hamish Abernathy's games, and there's not much to say because Suzanne Collins is an incredible writer. I will love everything she writes, she puts out. I like this more than Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, just because in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I find Snow just that insufferable as a character. I can't read it and enjoy myself. Whereas this one, the character's more likeable, I enjoyed it. They're still, problematic and annoying, but fun. Whereas Corio was just that insufferable, I had to take a break every 5 pages just to be like, God, he's a character, he's not real, he's a character. But really love the characters in this one. My only thing that I'm struggling with these new prequel books that are coming out, 10 years after the original Hunger Games trilogy, is that, obviously, because these come first, I have to make space in my mind when I think about the Hunger Games, the Hunger Games Catching Fire, Mockingjay. I've got to make space in my mind to bear in mind this now happens as well. And these books coming out, it kind of rewrites history a bit for me. Because so much happens in these games. So much happens, and it's and Hamish just never mentioned that in the original trilogy. Because obviously this didn't exist yet. I'm just struggling to rearrange the timeline. And I know that if I reread the Hunger Games trilogy after reading this, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, when did all these things happen in that timeline? And really loved it. In summary, really enjoyed it. I don't know how I feel about trying to make space in my mind to fit in the prequel to the sequel. Then my 2 audiobook reads this month were The Raven Boys and The Dream Thieves, because it's time for me to reread The Raven Boys. And I'm rereading them on Spotify, not as an actual ebook, but they're uploaded as an album. Which means, I think last time I did this, rereading them as an album. First of all, you can't speed them up at all, and yet somehow I'm reading them faster than I would if I sped them up. It's great background noise, and I really love this narrator. But it also means that, because it's a 10, 11 hour audiobook uploaded in 3-minute chunks, there's 200 songs or tracks per album. And it means that, as I said, last time I did this, Maggie Savota ends up being number 4 in my top artist on my Spotify Wrapped. But I really love these books, and as I was listening to The Raven Boys again, and my beloved Noah came onto page, it gave me an epiphany for the book I'm trying to write, which is the book I will be writing. And I'm sure I'll talk about it in a video soon. And I really love the series. I'm so shiny, but I think I just moisturised too good last night. Okay, a book I did read this month was The Moss by Lucy Luedecke. Who's to say? That's a fun last name spelling though. And this book with this cover, I think was originally published by a university press or something. And it was on my TBR loosely because I'm looking for boggy, marshy, mossy books as, research for something else I might be writing, but not the thing I previously said I might be writing, a whole different thing. And I noticed recently that it's kind of being republished by, is it Simon & Schuster? I believe, with a different cover, which I like less, by the way. And it's just being republished, and I have so many questions about what's going on here, and I can't find answers. But I read the ebook of The Moss out of curiosity, and again, I really enjoyed it. It's very atmospheric, which is what I wanted from this book in particular for my research purposes. I think it took until 75% of the way through the book for the plot to actually kick in for me. The first half, what is it about? So a girl and her family lived in this house on a marsh that obviously has something deeply wrong with it because it's luring people in. So her sister, first of all, her mother goes missing in the marsh, and her sister a few years later goes missing. Her father sends her away for a year because he's not affected by the marsh, so he sends her away for safety. She comes back after a year on the anniversary of her sister going missing, and she spends a lot of time just walking around town trying to investigate what's wrong with this house. I can't remember if we actually get a solid answer on why the marsh is out to get her. And then around 75% of the way through the book, she actually goes in to find her sister, and spoiler, she finds her sister quite easily and they just walk out. In my opinion, it's a bit more dramatic than that, but it felt kind of easy. Maybe this was 80% of the way through the book. But I quite enjoyed this. This would have been a 3.5 star read for me. I got out of it what I wanted from it, which was research about marshy, mossy atmospheres. And then the other ebook I read this month was The Corruption of Hollis Brown by Kate Ancrum, and this was a book that was provided to me by the author in exchange for a review, and my full review will be coming out in 2 weeks, I believe it's scheduled for, but it's like up on Goodreads and StoryGraph and all that now. And this book is like my highlight of the month, because as I say in every single time I talk about Kate Ancrum, she is a once-in-a-lifetime author for me. Something about her writing just hits me, she gets me, like telepathically she knows me, she does not know me. But I feel like I know her. That's really creepy to say. But The Corruption of Hollis Brown is... how do I begin to explain? So one night Hollis is out and about, he stumbles upon a guy, they're kind of just roaming the woods, his name's Walt. And Walt's obviously down on his luck, and Hollis is like, you know what if we just like, what if I help you? And Walt then possesses his body. But it's this like very queer romantic thriller about, you have Hollis who's out there in search of meaning, and you have Walt who is this spirit who possesses people, and he has unfinished business. So he's there possessing Hollis to try and like finish his business, and I guess end his life or his curse or whatever's going on with him to make him just eternally possess people. And it's a story about obsession where the end goal is to not get rid of your demon but to fall in love with them. And yeah, full review will be coming out in the next 2 weeks. I'll talk about it in a lot more eloquent detail. But I did really love this book, and it is my highlight of March. I think it's coming out in May, at least in the UK. And I can't wait to read it again with like all the formatting and to happen to hold. Then, okay, 2 more books. I read From the Belly, which must have been on like my TBR. Maybe Paper Fury did it in like a flat lay photo spread about nautical themed books. But it's been on my TBR in like that kind of abstract way, where it's a book I know about, but I don't actually know anything about it for a while. And I think I got added to one of my library collections. I thought, yeah, it's time for me to read it now, because it's quite on the short side as well. And I cannot even begin to really tell you what the climax of this book is. Okay, there's a bunch of people on a boat. They are whalers. They bring in a whale. They like cut it open because they're hunting for whale oil. And they pull out this boy whose name escapes me, who is like somehow alive in the stomach of the whale. And obviously that's a bad omen for them. So they throw this boy into... I don't remember my pirate ship terminology. Into the brig. They put him in prison. And there is some person on the boat who, again, name escapes me, who goes down to this boy and visit him. And like they have a deeper understanding. And it does turn out that the boy in prison is a bad omen for the whalers' greed for hunting whales, for being so greedy. And then we have like the nautical body horror stepping in, kind of Our Wives Under the Sea-esque, very loosely, where there's barnacles and stuff growing out of them, and they're all becoming sea creatures, and everything's gone to hell. And I think I only really understood what was going on after I read some other reviews, or I actually read the book description in detail, because I think it does say that he's a bad omen, he is a curse in the description. But as I was reading it, like a fever dream, like I'm absolutely captivated, I can't stop turning the page, I don't know what's happening, but I love it. And that's how I sum up my feelings towards From the Belly. I think I might have given it 3 or 3.5 stars in the end, because incredibly atmospheric, does what I want, very deep light by Frances Hardinge. But took me some prompting to know what was going on. And then the final book I read this month was Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid, and I will have a full review coming out maybe next month for this one, because I know it's going to be the Owlcrate April pick. So along my unboxing you'll get a review in that time. And this is, the other dystopian. I actually read this one before Sunrise and the Reaping came out. So just to get me in a dystopian mood. But Ava Reid is a very polarising author for me, where I tend to like every other one of her books. I've not actually read all of them yet, but I know I love Juniper and Thorn. I DNF'd is it called The Wolf and the Huntsman? The Wolf and the Woodsman. I really loved A Study in Drowning. I did not love Lady Macbeth. And now I have Fable, where it's like, I think I love it, or I really loved it until the very, very end. But it is a book, it is pitched as Sapphic Hunger Games, where it's meant to be a very almost post-apocalyptic dystopian society. It needs more atmosphere for me. But it is about, if you're very, very poor, for being in debt to the government, you can sacrifice your child into their Hunger Games, where they are personally hunted down by an angel, and they are a sacrificial lamb. And in this specific Hunger Games, the hunted falls in love with the hunter, and They try and go off the grid and fend for themselves and escape together, but it doesn't go to plan. But about this, I really loved the concept. I really did love the relationship between the characters. Wasn't huge on the world building, so it didn't feel enough for me. It still felt very like current world, but it flooded a little bit more. And wasn't fond of the ending, and I think Ava Reid's views on feminism are pretty much the exact same throughout all of her books. Like, I was reading Fable and I just had a flashback to like an exact quote being used in Lady Macbeth or something. And despite these characters, all of her characters being from like very different worlds, they all have like the exact same view on feminism. I think it is just a case of the author putting a lot of herself into the work. But I did quite like this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. Might have rounded up to 4. And I am still getting the Owl Crate box when it comes. Or it renews. It has renewed by the time you're watching this. But I did quite like this book. And that is all of the books I have finished reading this month, I think. It's like a mess on here. There's loads of books I haven't finished reading that I might come back to. I probably will come back to. So let's just do a quick check-in on what my stats for the year are. I have this other app called TBR Bookshelf where I can scan in every physical book I own to show which ones I haven't read to keep track of them, and I have at some point given up because I knew the number was going to go over 100. But my goal for the year is to read. I have a set list of 12 books I definitely want to read off this list, but my overall goal for the year is to read 24 physical books. So far I have read 7, 1, 2, 3, 4 of which are on my predetermined physical TBR, so as we are a quarter of the way into the year and I've read a third of my goal, that's very, very good. Then my goal for the year is 75 books. At some point when I get close to that goal, I'll probably increase it to 100, and I have read 35 books so far. And then StoryGraph, you can have like your specific page count goals and hour goals for audiobooks. So I have 15,000 pages and 150 hours, and when my goal inevitably increases, it will go up to 20,000 pages or 200 hours, and I am over halfway through both of those goals right now. My moves for the year, none of this is ever very exciting because I am such a reader creature of habit that yes, emotional, dark, mysterious, tense, and adventurous are always going to be on top. And then romance is very, very high up on my genres, I think, because in January I was reading a lot of these contemporary romances as research for the book I'm querying, and I read a lot of those. So yeah, YA, romance, fantasy, LGBT, contemporary, and then you get into the horror dystopian sci-fi thriller, which is where my reading will probably go for the rest of the year. And at this point in the year, I have actually read multiple books by some authors. I've read 2 T. Kingfishers, which... What was the first T. Kingfisher book I read this year? Was it like Thornhedge or something? Oh, it was the Twisted Ones. I've completely forgot I read that. So I read 2 T. Kingfishers, 2 Maggie Stavottas, which is my Raven Boys reread. I might reread Scorpio Races late in the year, as I tend to do when we get to November. And then 2 Rebecca Rosses, which was me rereading Divine Rivals, and then I read Ruthless Vows. And my average rating for the year is 3.5 stars, which is about right. It's very, very average, with mostly 4-star reads, which, yeah, sounds right. I try to read books that I know I'll enjoy. And that is all of my reading for this month, and just a little quick recap on how we're doing for the year so far. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you have goals for the year? Do you set goals? I set goals, but I'm trying to like get out of some of them. For example, on StoryGraph, I've turned off my reading streak. Very controversial, I know. But not because I'm trying to I was getting stressed trying to force myself to read every day, because sometimes I'm just not feeling it. But also, I did read every day, and yet I think it would have been like 500 days straight I read every day. But yet StoryGraph, despite me having pages and hours logged on every single day, somehow just doesn't acknowledge it, so my reading streak suddenly went down to like 20 days, and I just turned it off out of rage. I don't know what's going on there. Like, no matter how many times you contact them or like update the pages, it just doesn't work for me. I'm also still beefing with StoryGraph over their refusal to disclose what data they're using for their AI training, because the AI generated description for one of my books is absolutely horrific, and they haven't replied to my emails. They're ignoring comments. They're not deleting comments, they're just ignoring them though, and replying to everything around them. So StoryGraph's not my bestie right now. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!